The World Bank classifies a grand total of 2 African countries as being high-income economies: Mauritius and Seychelles. Neither are typical of the continent since they are both island nations in the Indian Ocean, over 1,500 kilometers away from the African mainland. They both rely heavily on tourism. Nevertheless, they are African countries, and they are developed, well-equipped hospitals, stable governments, universal education, and functional public transport systems. In short, they are successes, which is a very important thing to acknowledge. Africa is the poorest continent, and to the outside world, it has become almost synonymous with poverty and war. The reasons for its problems are well understood: European colonialism, frequent natural disasters, disease, etc., although actually solving these problems has proven to be far more difficult. All too often, countries seemingly on a path to prosperity have suffered from military coups, civil wars, rigged elections, famines, and a host of other problems. It's easy to lose faith. Many international onlookers complain that after decades of international aid, debt relief, and investment, much of Africa is as poor as it ever has been. There is, however, a brighter side to the recent history of humanity's home continent. While most African countries face immense developmental hurdles, some are well on their way to high standards of living, and by reflecting on these countries we can see that development efforts have certainly not always been a lost cause. Here is a quick tour of 3 nations leading the vanguard of African economic development. Number 3. Botswana. In the late 1960s, Botswana was just another failed state, with a GDP per capita of $70 per year. It had just obtained independence from the UK in 1966. Several decades later, the GDP per capita is now over $18,000, similar to China or Serbia. While it still lags behind the extremely advanced economies of Western Europe, North America, and East Asia, Botswana's development is nothing short of extraordinary. Better yet, the economy continues to show signs of strong growth, over 5% per year throughout the last decade. The key to Botswana's success is its impressively low level of corruption. It has enjoyed peaceful, democratic transfers of power for decades, and the population holds its government in fairly high regard. Whereas other African countries, like the Democratic Republic of Congo or Zimbabwe, have failed to capitalize on their significant natural resources, Botswana has profited from lucrative diamond exports, while making sure to maintain a trade surplus each year, thus ensuring better finances than most of the continent. In years to come, Botswana will need to address some major problems, like an extremely high HIV rate, about 1 in 3 adults, and a lack of economic diversity. The country relies heavily on mining, tourism, and cattle farming, and much of the population still works in inefficient subsistence agriculture. All that having been said, the country is peaceful, democratic, and fairly prosperous. Its future remains bright, and it is already within the wealthier half of world nations. Number 2. South Africa. South Africa is a bit of an unusual case. Despite being one of Africa's richest nations, it is also one of the continent's least equal countries. Scars from the country's apartheid period, when the majority black population was legally treated as subhuman until the 1990s, continue to linger. The country has one of the world's sharpest racial divides, with a white population almost as wealthy as Britain, and a significantly less rich black population. The African National Congress, Nelson Mandela's political party, has held power since winning the country's first free elections in 1994, a 27-year reign that has largely failed to better the lives of the country's citizens. The crime rates are amongst the highest in the world, many politicians are unabashedly corrupt, about a quarter of the population are unemployed, and it is one of the 10 worst countries in the world for income inequality. Yet in spite of all this, South Africa at its best is light years ahead of anywhere else in Africa. The country's contributions to science include the first human-to-human heart transplant, the modern yellow fever vaccine, and the CT scanner. The country boasts 4 Nobel laureates in the sciences and remains the only country in history to have independently developed, then voluntarily decommissioned, a nuclear arsenal. South Africa is the most industrialized, high-tech, and diverse economy in Africa, with strong points including Africa's largest financial industry and stock market. Employment in agriculture is very low by African standards, and the informal, cash-in-hand, economy is less important than in most developing countries, so it is unsurprisingly home to one of the largest middle classes in Africa. Number 1. Tunisia. Historically, North Africa has been wealthier than the continent's sub-Saharan region. That divide has diminished in the previous few decades thanks to a series of wars in Algeria, Egypt, and Libya, as well as jihadi terrorism in Morocco. Tunisia, however, has enjoyed greater success in recent years. In 2011, it experienced the Jasmine Revolution, which spread throughout the region as the Arab Spring. Unlike most Arab Spring uprisings, Tunisia's was successful, ousting a long-term dictator and ensuring free elections as well as a liberal constitution guaranteeing freedom of expression and religion. It is now one of the most free and democratic countries in the Arab world, and the least corrupt country in North Africa according to Transparency International. Tunisia continues to battle a number of problems, including youth unemployment, terror attacks, and immigration to Europe. However, it enjoys good political relationships and economic ties with France, Italy, and the EU generally. In many ways, it sits at a crossroads between Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, which is likely to prove advantageous in coming years.